My name is Concetta Marlowe, 27 years old. The airport lights buzzed above my head like a hive of angry wasps, flickering in that sickly, fluorescent way that made everyone look pale, tired, a little less human. My daughter whimpered against my chest, her tiny fists pressed into my shirt as if she could anchor herself there. I adjusted her carefully, even though my arms were shaking from exhaustion. 2 days without proper sleep, 3 without a real meal. It was catching up to me. The ticket that should have carried us home had been canceled without explanation, some clerical mess-up that no one at the counters seemed willing to take responsibility for. And with my bank card nearly empty, we were stranded. Hours stretched into a blur of announcements, rolling suitcases, and faces that never once turned toward us with concern. "Please," I whispered to an airline worker as I stood at the counter for what felt like the 100th time. I held my baby forward slightly, showing her flushed cheeks. "We just need standby. Anything." She hasn't stopped crying. The woman didn't even look up from her keyboard. "Flights are full. Next." That word, next, slammed against me harder than the rejection, as if I wasn't a person, just clutter in her way. I sank down against the cold tile wall, rocking my daughter slowly, while the current of travelers swept past. Families laughed together, lovers held hands, businessmen barked into phones, all of them so certain they had a place to go, someone waiting for them. I felt invisible, a ghost with a crying baby no one wanted to hear. Then I saw them, my parents. My heart surged up into my throat so suddenly it hurt. Dad walked with his familiar strut, chest out, hauling a massive pink suitcase I recognized instantly, Emily's. Mom pushed a cart stacked with bags, her face arranged into that brittle mask of polite importance. And Emily herself trailed behind, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown, scrolling on her phone as if the world existed to orbit her. Hope flooded me. Maybe this was the miracle. Maybe, after everything, they had come for me. I stood quickly, clutching my baby tighter. "Mom! Dad!" My voice cracked, a mix of desperation and relief. "Please, I'm stuck here. I can't get a flight. I need help." For a fraction of a second, Dad's eyes flickered with recognition, but then his mouth curled into a sneer. "Don't start this here," he muttered, tightening his grip on Emily's suitcase like it was a treasure. Mom's face hardened, a stone wall. "She has a flight to catch. Don't make a scene." Emily finally looked up, her smirk forming like a reflex. "Seriously, Concetta? You're still here? Pathetic." She adjusted her jacket, glossy and new, and laughed under her breath as though the idea of me begging in public was entertainment. My knees wobbled. My daughter whimpered louder, sensing the tension in my body. I kissed her head, trying to steady my voice. "Just hold her for a minute so I can go to the desk again, please." Dad shook his head. "You chose this life. Don't make us carry your baggage, too." He patted Emily's suitcase with a mocking smile. "This is the baggage that matters." The words knocked the air from my lungs. Mom brushed past me like I was invisible. "Always begging," she hissed under her breath. "Always a burden." And then, just like that, they were gone. Their laughter trailed behind them, merging with the buzz of the terminal until I couldn't tell which sound cut deeper. I sank back to the floor, tears spilling hot and fast. Around me, people slowed, whispered, even pulled out their phones. My humiliation was now another piece of passing entertainment. I didn't even have the strength to tell them to stop. Hours blurred into one another. Every gate announcement sounded like another locked door slamming in my face. My daughter's tiny face softened as she finally drifted into sleep, her fists still tangled in the fabric of my shirt. I stared at her features, guilt burning through me. She deserved better. Warmth, safety, love, not this cold floor. Not a mother abandoned by her own blood. I pressed my lips against her forehead, whispering, "I'm here. I promise I'm here." But beneath the promise, something else stirred. A sharper edge, colder than the tiled floor beneath me. They had just declared it in public. I didn't matter. My child didn't matter. Their baggage, Emily's comfort, Emily's glory, mattered more. The humiliation curdled into something darker. Not despair this time. Resolve. Because if I truly didn't matter to them, then one day I would make them matter less than nothing to me. That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dad sneering as he hauled Emily's suitcase, Mom's stone face, Emily's smirk like a knife. The words echoed like a curse. "She has a flight to catch. You don't matter. I rocked my baby in the hard plastic chair, her little body curled against me, her breaths uneven with dreams. My chest caved in from the weight of everything, but my mind was alight, whispering that this was not the end of the story. Not for me, not for her. The first night after my parents walked past me like I was a stranger, I stayed awake in the corner of the terminal, rocking my daughter while announcements boomed overhead. The intercom's sharp voice made her twitch in her sleep, her little hands gripping at my shirt as if afraid I might vanish too. By dawn, my phone buzzed, a message from Mom. Don't embarrass us at the airport again. Emily has enough stress without you causing a scene. I read it 3 times, my hands trembling before typing back. I had nowhere to go. The baby is hungry. I need help. No reply came. That afternoon, as I scavenged coins from the bottom of my bag to buy a bottle of water, Emily posted a glossy Instagram story, her boarding first class, designer sunglasses gleaming, with my parents grinning in the background as they lifted her luggage. The caption read, "Family always comes through when you need them." #blessed me. The words cut deeper than any knife. Family always comes through, but not for me, not for us. I realized then that begging them again was useless. They had already erased me. What I needed now wasn't their help. It was proof of who they really were. Over the next days, I started to watch differently, not just my surroundings, but my family, through Emily's endless stream of posts. Her life was a stage, her followers the audience, and my parents her permanent entourage. Every video showed them smiling behind her, clapping at her heels like servants carrying a queen's crown. But between the glossy filters, I noticed cracks. In one clip, Emily whined about delayed flights while Dad's voice snapped in the background, sharp and cruel. "Do your job, trash." The airline worker flinched, though Emily left the moment in, laughing at her own bad luck. In another, Mom bragged on a phone call. "We sacrificed everything for Emily. The other one, she was just a mistake." Emily giggled and kept it in, as if mocking me was part of her brand. Her followers thought it was a joke. To me, it was evidence. So I began saving everything. Every slip, every cruel comment, every polished video that carried the poison of who they truly were. I didn't know yet how I'd use it, but I knew I'd need it. Meanwhile, reality pressed harder. Nights stretched cold and merciless. I fed my daughter with formula bought by another stranded traveler, a man who handed me the bottle gently, saying, "Hang in there." His kindness felt almost unbearable after so much cruelty. Another woman, a grandmother on her way to see her first grandchild, pressed a soft blanket into my hands. "For her," she whispered, eyes glistening. I didn't ask for these things, yet they trickled in. Small sparks of humanity in a place where my own blood had left me to rot. But sparks weren't enough. I needed fire. On the 3rd night, when my daughter's cries finally softened into sleep, I whispered into her ear, "You will never grow up thinking you don't matter. You will never crawl for their approval. They will crawl for you." The vow sat heavy in the air. For the first time since the humiliation, I felt a strange calm. The next morning, I dragged myself to the airport cafe. The manager, a tired woman in her 40s with lines carved deep into her face, looked me up and down skeptically. "With the baby?" she asked. "I'll do nights," I said quickly. "I'll clean floors, wipe tables, anything. I just need a start." She studied me for a long moment, then sighed. "We're short-staffed." "Fine. You start tonight." That first shift nearly broke me. I tied my daughter to my chest with a makeshift sling and swept sticky floors, emptied trash bins that smelled of rot, wiped tables stained with spilled coffee. Travelers passed by without a glance, and every muscle in my body screamed. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something solid beneath me. Dignity. Every hour worked was another stone laid in a foundation. Every paycheck, however small, was a weapon forged against the emptiness my family had left me with. And while I scrubbed, I kept collecting. Emily's TikToks of her perfect life. My parents parading behind her, their cruelty slipping through in background words they didn't realize anyone noticed. I cataloged them all, date by date, timestamp by timestamp. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was preparing. Days blurred into nights, nights into weeks. The cafe workers started whispering about me, the girl who never gave up, the one who scrubbed floors with a baby strapped to her chest. Strangers left snacks in my locker, slipped me baby clothes, pressed folded bills into my palm with murmurs of, "For her." The kindness burned almost as much as the cruelty, but it reminded me, Not everyone abandoned us. Just the ones who should have never dared to. Emily, meanwhile, grew louder. Her online presence ballooned. More followers, more sponsors, more staged perfection. And every post gave me another fragment, another piece of the mask slipping. Sometimes, late at night, after my shift, I'd scroll through her feed in the cafe break room, my daughter asleep in my arms, and think, you have no idea I'm watching. No idea the performance is cracking. No idea I'm patient enough to wait until it all comes crashing down. One evening, I overheard two flight attendants gossiping at the cafe counter. That's the influencer, right? Emily Marlowe? One said, rolling her eyes. Yeah, the other muttered. Management's sick of her, always filming, always mocking staff. She'll get herself banned if she's not careful. I wiped the counter slowly, pretending not to listen. My pulse hammered. Because I wasn't going to get her banned. I was going to get her exposed. And as the weeks turned to months, my plan sharpened into something solid. I had proof, motive, and patience. All I needed was the perfect stage. The universe didn't take long to deliver it. One night, while wiping down the cafe's sticky menus, I overheard a passenger scrolling through their phone. Emily Marlowe's doing a brand-sponsored trip here next month. Whole thing's going to be streamed. Big production. I froze mid-wipe, my breath catching. Her stage, her spotlight. And soon, it would become mine. The airport became my battlefield, though no one else could see the war being waged. To the travelers, I was just the girl behind the counter, the one who wiped crumbs from tables with a baby strapped to her chest. But to me, every hour clocked was another brick in the fortress I was building. Months passed in a blur of night shifts. My daughter grew heavier against me, her once tiny fists now reaching out to grab at my necklace or tug at the edge of my apron. She babbled as I swept, her small sounds the only music I needed to keep going. The other workers began to notice. That kid's going to grow up strong, one said as I poured stale coffee into the sink. Another slipped me a sandwich, shaking his head. You're tougher than anyone in this terminal. Their words warmed me, but they didn't erase the bitterness coiled tight in my chest. Not when my phone kept lighting up with Emily's flawless face. She flaunted new sponsorships, paraded my parents through luxury hotels, captioned every post with hollow phrases like family first and loyalty always wins. I'd scroll through them in the break room, my jaw locked so hard it ached. But instead of crumbling, I gathered. Every careless smirk, every background insult my parents hurled at staff. Every time Emily's laugh carried cruelty instead of charm. My folders filled with proof, organized, cataloged, ready. The turning point came one night after my shift. I sat at a corner table of the cafe, my daughter asleep in her sling, while an IT worker named Jordan nursed his third cup of black coffee. He was a quiet man, awkward, but kind. He'd seen me too many times not to ask. You always here? He muttered, adjusting his glasses. Night shifts, I said. Someone's got to mop up the coffee you all spill. That earned me a rare smile. After a pause, I lowered my voice. You work with the airport screens, right? The public displays? He blinked. Yeah, why? I hesitated, then pulled out my phone. I showed him one of Emily's clips, her rolling her eyes at a crying passenger, while Dad barked at staff in the background. Do your job, trash. Jordan's jaw tightened. She posted this herself? She posts everything herself, I said. She thinks the world worships her too much to notice what's behind her. I watched him replay the video twice. His silence was its own kind of judgment. What are you planning? He asked finally. I held his gaze. The truth. I want people to see the truth. Jordan leaned back, running a hand over his tired face. For a moment I thought he'd laugh, dismiss me, tell me to move on. Instead he nodded slowly. Not saying it's easy, but the system, it's possible. Possible. The word hit me like a spark in dry tinder. Over the next weeks, Jordan and I met in quiet corners of the cafe. I showed him clips, not just one or two, but the mountain I'd gathered. Emily mocking staff, Dad snarling insults, Mom's cold declaration, one child was worth raising, the other was just a mistake. Each time, Jordan's jaw clenched harder. She has sponsors? A platform? Millions, I said. She makes money selling a lie, and my parents built their lives around that lie too. He rubbed the back of his neck. Then this isn't just about family, it's about accountability. I didn't answer, but inside I felt the truth of it. This wasn't petty revenge anymore. It was survival, mine, my daughter's, and justice in a twisted way for everyone they had stepped on. Meanwhile, my work at the cafe shifted. I was no longer just the invisible girl cleaning floors. I became someone staff whispered about with respect. The single mother who never missed a shift. The woman who worked harder than anyone without complaint. Travelers noticed too. Some smiled, left bigger tips. Others handed me old baby clothes or toys their children had outgrown. Each small act chipped away at the narrative my parents had carved into me. Burden, mistake, invisible. And yet every kindness only fueled my fire, because if strangers could see worth in me, what excuse did my own blood have? The answer was simple: none. One evening, after closing, I sat with Jordan at a table cluttered with cold coffee cups. He tapped his laptop, bringing up the airport's display grid, rows of schedules, announcements, gates, all controlled by code and timing. "You really want to do this?" he asked. "Yes," my voice didn't waver. He studied me. "Once it's out, there's no going back. They won't forgive you." "They erased me already," I said. "What's left to forgive?" His eyes softened for a moment before he turned back to the screen. "Then we'll need timing. Her next big trip?" I nodded. I'd already done the research. Emily had announced her upcoming brand-sponsored flight, streamed, documented, her most public spectacle yet. My parents would be there, of course, carrying her bags, clapping behind her like always. "The perfect stage," I whispered. Jordan glanced at me. "And you? What will you say when it happens?" I thought of my daughter, of the night I whispered into her tiny ear that she would never crawl for their approval. I thought of the way my father had smirked as he patted Emily's suitcase, the way my mother had looked through me like I was transparent. "I won't need to say much," I murmured. "The truth will speak louder than I ever could." That night, as I rocked my daughter to sleep in the small rented room above the cafe, I stared at her face. She slept peacefully, unaware of the storm I was preparing. For months, I had carried humiliation like a stone strapped to my back, but now I carried something else: anticipation. The date was set, the plan was real. All that remained was the moment when their world, polished and perfect, would shatter under the weight of their own cruelty. The morning of Emily's brand-sponsored trip arrived like the opening act of a performance I had rehearsed 1,000 times in my head. The airport thrummed with the usual chaos: rolling suitcases, intercom announcements, the clatter of hurried shoes. But beneath it all, I felt a clarity, sharp and cold. Jordan had tested everything twice the night before. The files were loaded, the triggers aligned with the public display system. All I had to do was be there, hidden among the crowd, when Emily strutted into her spotlight. And she didn't disappoint. Emily arrived with the timing of a queen making her entrance. Ring light in one hand, phone angled to catch the glow, her lips pursed in a perfect smile. Behind her, my parents followed like loyal attendants. Dad dragged 2 gleaming suitcases, Mom balanced garment bags draped over her arm. They looked proud, oblivious, already basking in reflected glory. I slipped into the crowd, my daughter perched on my hip. She gurgled softly, tugging at my sleeve, and I kissed her hair. "Almost there," I whispered. Emily beamed at her phone. "We're about to board first class," she announced, voice sugary sweet. "Family always comes through for me." That was my cue. The monitors flickered. For a heartbeat, the terminal hesitated. Then the screens changed. The first video played, Emily, sneering as a crying passenger struggled at the gate. "Unlike my sister, I actually matter," she had said, tossing her hair with a laugh. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The next clip rolled, Dad barking at a staff member, his face twisted in disdain. "Do your job, trash. My daughter has a flight to catch." A murmur of anger surged. Travelers glanced at staff members, who stood frozen, their eyes narrowing. Then came Mom's voice, sharp and cold. One child was worth raising. The other was just a mistake. The words echoed through the speakers, louder than any announcement. A hush fell, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Phones shot up instantly, recording. Whispers turned to shouts. "Is that her?" Monsters. Unbelievable. Emily spun toward the nearest monitor, her phone slipping from her hand and clattering onto the floor. This isn't real!" she shrieked, reaching out as if she could claw the images down with her hands. Dad roared, shoving at a gate agent. "Turn it off." His anger only drew more attention, more cameras. Mom clutched her chest, her mask cracking. "This is sabotage," she muttered, her voice trembling. But the truth blared on loop, their own voices condemning them more effectively than I ever could. Emily's brand representative, standing near the boarding gate, barked into his phone. Cancel everything. We're done. His glare cut into her like a knife before he stormed away. The crowd's outrage swelled. Some booed, others jeered. Staff members folded their arms, their faces hard with vindication. Strangers recorded from every angle, uploading, reposting. By the time the monitors finally went dark, the damage was irreversible. Emily collapsed into a chair, mascara streaking her cheeks. "It's not fair," she whispered hoarsely. "It's not fair." Dad looked around, wild-eyed, as though he could intimidate the dozens of cameras pointed at him. But for the first time, no one moved aside for him. No one bent to his fury. Mom's lips trembled. She tried to reach for Emily's shoulder, but Emily shoved her away, her sobs jagged and loud. And me, I stepped forward just enough for them to see me in the crowd. My daughter shifted in my arms, her small hand gripping my collar. "You walked past me when I begged," I said softly, just loud enough for them to hear above the chaos. "Now everyone else will walk past you." For the first time, they looked at me, not with superiority, not with scorn, but with fear. Dad opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Mom stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. Emily buried her face in her hands, sobbing harder. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I didn't need to. Their downfall wasn't a single moment. It was permanent, etched into every phone, every post, every whisper spreading through the airport like wildfire. By the time I stepped out into the cool evening air, holding my daughter close, their empire of lies had already crumbled. That night, in the small apartment a kind coworker had helped me find, I rocked my baby to sleep. The hum of the city drifted through the cracked window, but inside, everything was still. I thought of the terminal where it all began, the cold floor, the humiliation, the buzzing lights overhead. I thought of my parents' laughter as they carried Emily's bags, and Emily's smirk as she mocked me. They said I didn't matter. But now the world knew who really didn't. I kissed my daughter's forehead, breathing in her warmth. "You'll never have to beg for their love," I whispered. "Not ever." And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace settle in my chest. Not the peace of reconciliation, but the peace of resolution. Because some families can't be mended. Some wounds don't heal. But dignity, once reclaimed, can never be taken again.